there. I did go to CREST yesterday, and TEA had 2 sessions. And so here are the highlights from the information concerning the STAR redesign. House Bill 3906 and federal requirements are really pushing this redesign, and largely for the purpose of assessing the breadth of our RLA TEKS and to avoid a narrow focus. The rollout here that you see, and this is not this spring, but next spring, there will no longer be a 4th and 7th grade standalone writing test. This means also that on the EOC for English 1 and 2, there will not be a separate section for writing. We will have field tested revision and editing passages for 3rd through 10th grade again next year. This year, for the writing tests that we already took, for the reading tests that are about to happen, some students will see revision and editing passages, but next year, 3rd through 10th grade, everyone will see these new revision and editing passages, where the editing passages will be shorter, like 1 to 2 paragraphs. Revision will still stay the traditional length due to the nature of revision. This 3rd bullet is one of the biggest shifts with lots of implications for our curriculum and for our instructional practice. They will begin field testing next year, short and or extended constructed responses. So short answers, and then what we have been calling STAR essays, they are now more appropriately going to call extended constructed responses. These will be in connection to the reading selections that they read for the assessment. Students will be encouraged to use text evidence, and then where it's applicable, even personal anecdote to support their ideas and their response. Then the next year, so 2 years from right now, we will be at the full implementation of what they're calling the near-term STAR redesign. And that includes our transition to online testing. It includes the transition to only 75% of our tests being traditional multiple choice as we're used to it being. 25% of the tests will be made up of these new test items. I've got hyperlinked here, so I'll afford you these slides so that you can play around with those items and offer TEA your feedback on your experience with them. The 4th bullet there in that center column talks to an emphasis on cross-curricular selection. So the goal is by 2023 that all of our informational pieces will be connected to our science content and our social studies content. You will start seeing this maybe even this year, but especially next year as they are curating these selections. This is really an emphasis of the states to ensure that we are teaching science and social studies at all grade levels. And then those revision and editing passages we already talked about, in addition to the constructed responses of both links, will become the norm there in spring 2023. Beyond spring of 2023, and I just put this in here, just in case you're interested in this type of thing, that districts will be piloting assessments that are chopped up over days. Could be a couple of days in the fall, could be a couple of days in the spring, or just multiple days in the spring, because they will have more data at that point about how long it is taking students to get through these integrated types of tests, and see whether or not we need to make sure that it's happening in more than one day. And then the other possible pilot will have to do with the TEA suite of assessments to include integrated formative assessments. But those are things for the future and that you don't need to worry about right now. So on this slide, this just gives you a little bit more clarification around these changes to how we are assessing writing on the STAR. So number 1, we have 2 types, both short and extended. And then number 2, they have not yet fleshed out their plans for which grade levels will do the short, which grade levels will do the extended, whether all grade levels will do both, whether some grade levels will have a synthesis short response that means that they have to pull connections from more than one passage. I'll move on because we're getting more information. Supposedly the blueprints for the redesigned STAR will be distributed in the fall, which will give us information about really how to better prepare our students for the future. Number 3 there, you see the genre, and this is specifically genre of composition. We were told yesterday that the genre of composition will be dictated by the prompt. So this is interesting. We pushed him. We didn't get this in writing, but we pushed one of the TEA assessment people to really explain what he meant by this. And he said, well, if the prompt calls for a personal narrative, then the students will write a brief personal narrative, and they can use evidence from the text for, say, how a character is similar to them, or it could be topically connected, and then they can also, of course, use personal anecdote since it's a personal narrative. And then if the prompt asks for an informational, then they will need to be able to discern that. Or if the prompt is asking for a position paper, an opinion or persuasive paper, then that would be the appropriate response. So that's a lot of implication for exactly what type of elaborate practice we give students on various genres that each grade level is responsible for. It also has resource implications to ensure that everybody knows how to set their students up for success with the various types of composition that we're called to teach. And then number 4, again, that the revision passages and the shorter editing passages will be present in all of our assessed grade levels 3rd through 10th. And this is really mainly for that 2023 move to digital. As you peruse these new test items that'll make up at least 25% of our tests starting in 2023, you will see that most of them require a digital interface. So here you see the list of test items specific to RLA and with their definitions. And then again, you have the hyperlink to TEA/Pearson's chance website for you to explore these new test items and give feedback. And they promise us that they will be releasing more and more example items that we can utilize in our classrooms. All right, that's all for me, guys. I just wanted to make sure you had this information as soon as possible, and as soon as we had it as clear as possible. We have been warned to share that because we are in legislative session, of course, these timelines could shift. Nothing with TEA and or Texas's STAR is set in stone until those blueprints come out. And so we will be awaiting those in fall, but I wanted you to have the most up-to-date information as soon as I did. Anyway, thank you so much for all that you do. Good luck on the upcoming reading tests for grade levels that are involved in those, and call on me if you need me.